Okay, so over the span of the last 8.5 years, I have been very critical of the online activities of Anita Sarkeesian. And this is one of those times where I heavily debated talking about this particular subject, but I feel it is worth noting. Anita is as done in gaming, and I would say in some aspects activism, as one could potentially be. And I say that because, well, what has she done lately? What has she done in a long time? Her relevance, much like my relevance in regards to Gamergate or anything else like that, is gone, right? It's time to move on. And normally I wouldn't talk about her anymore, but I just came across this particular thing that I just find to be so utterly amazingly fascinating that I couldn't help myself from wanting to talk about, because I feel like this just showcases 100% once and for all where she stands and how bad things truly are for Feminist Frequency. If you looked at the financial report that they released in the beginning part of the year, you know that donations were down. Generally, quite a few came in during the fourth quarter of last year. I normally like to do a deep dive into it, but I opted out of it this year because I thought, you know what? It's not worth it anymore. But I still like to read it to keep abreast of what's going on with a very public 501c3 nonprofit owned and operated by Anita Sarkeesian. And this time around, we get something that is so weird that it just shows you that, like, and again, in compare and contrast it to other things she's done, it gets pretty wild. So first and foremost, we gotta take a look here at these images. Now, this is coming from what I believe is an email that she sent out. I could not find this on the website. In fact, I can't find any direct information about this on the website. So let us take this with a grain of salt just right now, because I'm not able to actually confirm this information. But knowing her and knowing how her outfit operates, it does make sense that this is something that they would try. So and this is what I think is an email blast. Says here, stand up for survivors of online content abuse and harassment. Hi, friend. Last week, we reached out to tell you about our new project designed to challenge the culture of sexism in gaming. Keep in mind, she's still on this. She's still on sexism in gaming, still there. After all of these years of not even moving the needle an inch, not an iota, in fact, probably regressing it in many ways, she's still here. So she says, so we are so grateful for the 134 donors who have given 6,855, not that much, in the first week of our year-end fundraising campaign to help us launch them. Today, we want to tell you a bit more about one of these initiatives, the Games and Online Harassment Hotline. The Games and Online Harassment Hotline. Oh boy. Oh boy. Here we go. So this is the other part of that. It says the hotline addresses an urgent situation, one I wish I was less familiar with. Right now, players experience harassment within gaming communities, like I did and still do. Again, has to play the victim because that's how she gets the money. Developers experience sexism and abuse in the workplace, and it's all too common for these folks who have been harassed or abused to feel isolated and alone. People are suffering, and there isn't anyone they can turn to who will take their experiences seriously and hold space for them. Until now, we believe that our Games and Online Harassment Hotline will change all of that. The hotline is a text message based 24/7 anonymous and confidential emotional support hotline created specifically for the gaming community. Whether someone needs emotional support or referrals to other resources, the hotline will be there to help you. It's essential to us that access to the hotline be free for anyone who might need it at any time. So it's a 24/7, completely free, completely anonymous, completely confidential emotional support hotline that you can text into, and it's going to go out on the internet. Bad things will happen. And I know you listening to this right now agree with me. Now it says here that our campaign launched last week to prove just how necessary the hotline is. Our Facebook posts and tweets were flooded with harassment and abuse the moment they were posted. That's how entrenched sexism is in the gaming industry and community. We can't even name the problem, much less talk about solutions, without becoming a target for intimidation. And look, and to be fair, and I will grant her fairness here, that is actually a pretty salient point. It is difficult when you want to enact change in an industry that you feel needs to have some change to say something about it, because people who disagree with you might flood you. It is part of the game. You do just have to put up with it. You really do. You just have to put up with it. and then not let it bog you down. And it can bog you down. And that is something that I do know from personal experience. And it's not a good thing. So you can't do it. Just keep moving forward, whether we agree or disagree. That's where it's got to be on this front. So, and then it goes on to say that, well, we don't care about what they think. No, they do, which is why they're putting together this hotline and they're trying to raise money for it. We're moving forward, not only with the games and harassment hotline, but with other projects that will help more male gamers become our allies instead of part of the problem and stop future sexism and abuse before it starts. She's never been about trying to help the male gamer. She never cares about that at all. She really doesn't. This is where you come in. They can try to intimidate us, but they can't stop us, especially with you on our side. If our community raises $25,000 by December 31st, we can launch the hotline in January and our other new initiatives in early 2020. Now, she's done this sort of thing before. There was a thing last year, I believe, where she was trying to raise $25,000. Again, right around the end of the year, if I recall, where she wanted to open a Discord. It was 25 grand to open a Discord server. I'm not making that up. That legitimately happened. And I think she made the money, or maybe she didn't make the money. But like, again, I've never heard about this Discord server. It's never been talked about in a public sense. And that's what happens when you talk about Anita. Nothing is ever public unless she wants to showcase that she's the victim. That is how she is. And we've seen this for 8.5 years. And I'm being fair here in my criticism. I'm not attacking her as a person. This is just the game that she likes to play. So coming over here to the website here, we can see this is her donate page. We can see this here. And so they've had 183 people donate compared to the, how many was it beforehand? It was 134 people. This is from a couple days ago. So only like another 50 people have donated money, but they went up like almost double what they had gotten off of those few people. And they're about halfway to getting the $25,000 goal. So she's got 2.5 weeks in order to reach that goal. So I'm pretty sure she's going to hit it. People are going to come in at the end of the year and they're going to notice that. But really what she says here is fighting abuse and challenge sexism in gaming. And then, again, it's just standard boilerplate nonsense she talks about here, but nothing in there about a hotline, right? It says here, we have to fight for, it's not going to change. We have to fight for it. That's why we're launching new initiatives, right? But nothing in there about a hotline, nothing in there about what her plan is. And then of course there's this down here, which is Feminist Frequency is a 501c3 nonprofit charity. All donations are tax deductible by the fullest extent allowed by law. And this is the grift. This is always the grift, is that 501c3. Well, when I talk about Anita and I talk about looking over the finances and I talk about all those things, one of the things that popped up for the last couple of years was her association with Zoe Quinn. Now, we all know my thoughts and theories on Zoe Quinn. Not a fan. You're probably not a fan. None of us are really fans. But when you look over here, this is what Zoe Quinn created, that Anita Sarkeesian's Feminist Frequency financed for a couple years. If I recall, this was probably one of the only people that actually donated money on any kind of official, area. I mean, Anita would take funds earned by her 501c3 and then funnel them into Crash Override, which is, it's a crisis helpline, an advocacy group and resource center for people who are experiencing online abuse. We are a network of experts and survivors who work directly with the victims, tech companies, lawmakers, media, security experts, and law enforcement to educate and provide direct assistance, working to eliminate the causes of online abuse. So when you look at the idea of Anita putting out a hotline, a 24/7 text message only hotline for emotional support, which is just going to get probably abused, or they're just going to bury the number so heavily that only a few people have it. And therefore it ends up being this like number that gets passed around and not put out there in any kind of public way, even though they're soliciting funds for this type of endeavor. So the number should be public. I do believe that would actually have to be the case, because that is an initiative put forward by a 501c3 nonprofit who has to be very public and transparent with everything that they're doing. And Anita knows how to get around some of that stuff. So I expect this to be something that gets launched in a very softball capacity and then ends up going nowhere. But Crash Override was Zoe Quinn's baby. Zoe Quinn had tied her horse to Anita. Anita's company organization, I want to call it an organization, be fair, was absolutely funding it. As far as I can tell, was one of the only people dumping any money into Crash Override, which my theory is that it just went to basically pay Zoe Quinn's salary. until the money on that dried up and the relevancy on that dried up, and there's really no need to do it. This is, again, just more nonsense coming out of Anita. I understand she's been at this game for a long time. She has raised a lot of money. She tends to raise it every single year, but the relevancy overall is waning. She doesn't have the popularity she had when she peaked, I believe, in around 2017 after the VidCon incident. I think that kind of that was kind of like the beginning of the end. She doesn't do public talks. As far as I can tell, like her podcast is now just once a week with her and her friends sitting around on microphones like this, talking about, hey, did you see the latest episode of Supernatural? Let's talk about how sexist it is. Or going on Twitter and doing absolutely insanely hot takes about The Mandalorian and getting roasted over an open fire as a result of that. This is Anita at the end of her career. She's not working to revitalize. She's not working to rebrand. She's just looking to maintain. And you know what? I'm not going to lie. I get it. I do. I get it. I understand. And in that particular case, I sympathize. The maintenance is one of the hardest things. Staying around is one of the hardest things. But you know what? You got to roll with the punches. And Anita doesn't seem to get that. And I think that's why certain things with her aren't ever going to change. And this is just where she's at. And the further and further away from relevancy on any front she gets, it's going to become more and more vitriolic. It's going to become more and more over the top. And she's going to start going after gaming again because it's only gaining in popularity, and she wasn't able to ride that wave for any longer than a couple years. So here she is trying to launch a 24/7 text message hotline for emotional support. And she needs 25 grand to do it. Just like she needed 25 grand to launch a Discord server and 159,000 to do low effort YouTube videos about how sexist Batman's butt was. Anyway, your thoughts, your opinions, let me know down in the comments below. I will chit chat with you guys later on. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a fantastic day and peace out.